So tonight what we're going to do is Sean will give a presentation when he gets here. PR has some information to tell us about their edge of the project. Business has some information to tell us about their edge of the project. Then we're going to do a push session. That's why your boards are back on the whiteboards, which involves an expulsion or an expansion of certain areas, voting, and then an expulsion of other areas. Then we're going to do some time working interdepartmentally so that I can bounce around and make sure everybody's on the same page by the end of the night. I'll go over this now since we seem to always run out of time at the end of the meetings. Tonight is the last series meeting of the TCC for this semester. Next Monday, because it's like the beginning of exam week and everyone will be incredibly stressed out and worried about lots of things, we're just going to play some games. We're going to get people lots of points and you'll have an opportunity to dethrone Caitlin and Andrew. Yes, clap. That's a good thing. You still get half a point for showing up at 6:55 or before, just like these guys did not. So
Your sweatshirt
I
says
guess
lady.
implemented Utopia could have gotten a point and a half and closed the gap on them if you didn't get any points at all. Every time we do something else, you have a chance to get 1 point in games. You can win lots of points. I'll let everybody know this right now. If you do a project like Andrew is doing right now, if you do a project for the organization outside of what's required in the weekly meetings, you'll get a bunch of points. I don't know how many points you get yet, but Andrew's going to get a bunch of points, so when you see his score at the end of it jump up a whole lot, that's why. But I promise you that will not win him it automatically, because of what we're going to do next week. So we're going to have some fun next week. We're going to de-stress everybody, and we're going to close up the semester like that. And then we're going to leave it on, and we're going to make sure, and even if we have to take a little bit of our fun time away next week, we're going to leave it on a good closed note this semester so we can pick it right back up at the beginning of next semester. We're not getting rid of this, I promise. Also, what's going on over the break, and we'll talk about this next week as well. What's going on over the break, if you're so inclined, if ECC has just changed your life, and you really like to get back to it, we're doing specialized projects, and yes, you get lots of points for doing them. We're writing 2 charters. We have a TCC charter that needs to be revised, and we're writing the CCN charter that goes over it. If you like public policy work, if you like writing for anything professionally, this is a good way to do it. It's essentially, we're writing contracts. We're also doing media kits in the PR department. We're doing policy kits, and we are rounding out the business kits. Also, we are doing, who is advertising? You're advertising, really? No, not you, no, sorry. You're advertising, I knew that, okay. All 4 of you are advertising. We're doing micro advertising packets for the groups that we're doing recruitment with next semester. Next semester we're doing a huge recruitment push. This semester's project was crowdfunding. Next semester's project is recruitment. We're going to triple the amount of people in this room, I promise. That is a promise from me to you, and it's going to happen. What we're doing with it, though, is because we've obtained, I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this, but we've obtained some tools to actually do market research data to measure our impact on campus, et cetera, et cetera. We're doing this just like a business would do it. So we're doing micro advertising packets, and by that I just mean advertisement packets that are focused just on microcosms within the school. So like your agriculture school or your philosophy school, et cetera, et cetera. You'll be able to work with professional level data improvement. You'll be able to look at the data. You'll be able to see exactly how well it worked. It'll be great for your professional portfolio. If you're interested in advertising and you like the idea of it, we'll talk about who's going to do that next week. All 3 of these things will be going on over the break, though. So if you like doing things and you like seeing the TCC grow and get bigger and better, or possibly if you want to take on an administrative role in the organization one day, these are all fantastic ways to do that. Cool. We'll talk about this again next week, though. So tonight, Sean's going to go first then. And he is going to tell us what has happened in the Tennessee legislature the Tennessee legislature has voted to switch from collective to collaborative bargaining for the teachers. He's going to tell us all about that.
Basically, the state has replaced, Mark said, collective bargaining, which is the Tennessee Education Association would negotiate on behalf of all teachers with its school board for benefits, classroom size, working conditions, various range of other things. That is now completely gone. Now it's something called collaborative conferencing, which, let's see, sorry. Basically, any group can now negotiate on behalf of any group of people with the school board, but the negotiations are not binding. With collective bargaining, the negotiations were binding on both the school board and the teachers voted on it. With the collective conferencing, sorry, just 1 second. It doesn't require the teachers to accept it. Their input is simply deemed advisory. Basically, all the authorities now with the school boards. That's pretty much the long and short of it.
So you think that the school boards would be like particularly advantageous group to market to as far as like people to address or change?
Yeah, because what the teachers used to be able to do is say, the most senior teachers go to the best schools in the district, and the newest teachers have to automatically start out in the worst schools and kind of work their way up. And that is something that they can't even collaboratively conference about anymore. That's completely verboten as a topic of discussion. They can only collaboratively conference about pay and benefits. And
So you're saying the former situation is like staying in place?
no, the former situation's gone.
Okay.
So basically now the school board has total discretion over seniority in hiring and firing.
So essentially you're applying for like a county or a district, and then that district directs you to a school, and you're gonna teach there.
Well, right, well, I mean, each school board used to do it differently, but it was based on the collective bargaining agreement. So if the teachers had negotiated with, say, Davidson County Schools that, all new teachers have to go to Hillwood at the kind of a brother school, and then they can move on to, different schools when they get more years. Now, the school board can still have that policy, but the teachers don't have any impact on deciding that. So that's one of the more controversial aspects of it, but that is something that's different.
So to sum up from Mark, the teachers like lost their bargaining rights and now it's all school boards. So it's useful to go to the school boards more so than the teachers.
Okay.
Persuasion more.
Yeah, basically, and also the Tennessee Education Association has lost its sole authority to negotiate. Any group that can get 15% of the teachers to sign up as like a member can now negotiate with the school board.
So that's the limit, it's 15%. It's just of teachers, they don't have to go through unions or anything like that.
No, like if, all the teachers at one school, and if they somehow accounted for 15%, all decided that they were going to name one representative, and they all signed on and agreed to that. And that representative can negotiate on their behalf.
Okay.
And the county wouldn't make a separate agreement with that one group, but they would have a seat at the table in formulating the final agreement.
Okay.
Okay, so after last week's meeting, we determined that legislators are a really big audience. So we developed a lot about just the different levels, and we determined that the like communication with the governor. So each of those, they have like their different duties, and the next thing that we'll do is go and like profile each of those people and figure out where their interests lie in order to determine like who we should go and talk to, because you have to kind of start low and work your way up and get our word out to everybody. So besides those 5 people that are in the governor's office, there are also commissioners, and those are for just a bunch of different departments like education or like environment conservation. So we're looking at the departments that are like the most important and relevant to the project, and a few of them include education, economic and community development, labor and workforce development, and there's probably a couple other that we can determine fit for the project. And once again, with those, we'll go into looking at the directives of each of those and determining like what their areas of interest are and like how to appeal to them essentially. So with coordination with like the business and policy department, we'll figure out exactly who we need to go after and how that fits into the plan. A couple things about Bill Haslam that we found out. He's a really, really strong advocate in education reform. And one of his priorities, and this is like on his website and everything, is education and workforce development. And he says that college access and success is a definite priority. I threw in a couple quotes on the drive that are directly from the website that like really define like what he's about, and it's all about helping every region raise educational attainment rates and enhancing the workforce development efforts through innovative and public and private partnerships. So it's just right up our alley of like what we're doing, and that kind of shows that we can appeal to him. We know he has this interest in mind. As well as he's really big about like making our generation and future generations ready for like the 21st century economy. And with that, he emphasizes making a more seamless path between like high school and then post-secondary education and training and getting into the workforce. So he's really trying to like bridge the gap between all of these different stages in education, which is really great. And another person that we realized would be extremely important to target is his wife, Chrissy Haslam, because she is considered the First Lady of Tennessee, which is a really nice title. She's really big on promoting early literacy and brain development. So a couple articles I read, she just goes and visits a lot of schools and supports like reading programs and like a lot of like early like pre-kindergarten like brain development programs for like babies basically. And there's an article that I posted a link to that talks about, I think it's a program that Chrissy and Bill Haslam's support or promote, I don't know if they advocate, I don't really know what their position is with it. But it's all about making meaningful academic partnerships. And the 2 main points under this is that they are really encouraging parental engagement, so more parental engagement. They made a huge link between how much like responsibility among like families and schools and communities and like building partnerships with all these people go to support and help children's learning, and which raises their scores. So there's a lot of like statistics that show like how parental involvement helps raise scores and also has like a really big effect on like other attitudes and behaviors and stuff of students. And then, okay, so along with parental engagement, the other point that they really stress is literacy development. And once again, they give a lot of facts on like why it's important, where our state stands right now. They're very aware that we are really bad in education, and they believe that enhancing literacy rates or increasing literacy rates are going to be helpful in moving our state up. So you can go and read more about that entire program. I could talk about it for a while, but those are like the 2 really big points in it. Yeah, so along with the governor, that's a really big focus, and those are like a lot of things that we're keeping into consideration. And along with the school boards, yeah. Okay, what are the main things that you found?
I really only looked up Metro Nashville, so Davidson County, County, Davidson County has 9 districts. Each one has 1 elected board member, and then they have multiple council members depending on how big their district is. And Knoxville is set up similarly with 9 districts, but they have a student representative, which is able to sit in the meetings and pretty much learn from what's going on and be able to tell his fellow students at the others, at the school he goes to. Basically, there was only 1, but from my understanding, there's 1 from at least each school. He's at South Doyle, so did you know anything about that from Knoxville? Okay. But Shelby County, they have like 7 districts at least, but there was 7 numerical and then there was 7 Roman numerals, so I was really confused on that. But there's the Knox Schools page talked about, was very descriptive about what their school board actually does. And it's all in the doc, or the Google Drive, and there's the board policies. They work on the school district organization, the school year, so they also talk about in-service days and how many are in the calendar. They talk about what they want from their faculty, what they want from the students, how much credit they need to graduate. But I thought that something was very interesting. They have a revision date, and very few of them have been revised since 2008. So I think this is similar in other counties. I guess there's room for change. Yes.
Did you see anything about like wealth disparity in different counties? Which one was the greatest or the least?
I haven't really found much about that.
Yeah, those are one of the factors that we're going to have to look at. What Lindsay's doing is like just first off trying to define like all the different districts, and so we're going to have to further develop that. Now that it's become a much bigger focus for like our target markets after what Sean told us, we'll be going into much more definition on how to like target each district. And do you want me to talk about, like I have like a brief thing about like the like Senate-based thing, it's just like a quick thing, I don't know if that's important to mention or not.
Yeah, but before that, for those of us who don't know, can you give us a brief synopsis of what a school board does?
Basic, I feel like from what I saw, they meet twice a month, and they talk about anything that is brought up by the school. I was reading through some of the minutes of the last meeting. They were talking about changing bus routes. They were talking about honoring a teacher for giving there was a 69 decrease in school violence. So they were honoring that, and I guess they were telling that to other high schools that were there. But that's basically what I got from reading over the minutes. I'm not too sure how far they get involved, but based on the Knox County's page with their board policies, I was really interested at how much they have, like, that they organize themselves. So.
Okay.
We'll go into more detail about like the influence of like school boards on each district and where their priorities kind of lie, and like what the big issues like depending on each district are. So
Okay, well, while we've got everybody here, who knows what a school board does? Anybody?
the House, they don't have any like lawmaking powers, so probably not the most important audience for us to go out to. The Senate, on the other hand, are very important. Like Mark mentioned, they have to be reelected every 4 years, I think staggered 2 years. And so there's 33 for the state of Tennessee. And I looked through, this was like on one of the Tennessee like government websites. It shows like all of the bills and everything that have been So through that, like you can see patterns, and like certain senators like supported the same amount of like same certain things. Some of them support more like, oh, get rid of like violence in schools, and other ones were like, no, we need more like, you know, textbooks or this and that. And so like three main senators that I noticed were like Gresham, Burke, and Kelsey. And like there's a huge list of all the different bills and stuff that have been passed like in the past year or that have not been passed. So that's a really good way for us advertising people to go in and see where these people's like actual interests lie, like down to like what bills they're actually like trying to pass, which ones they support. So having that knowledge is very, very useful to us in targeting the right people. So a lot of it's kind of like stalking for us. We get to like really like profile people and figure out what they like and don't like. So it's fun.
It's a huge cost to maybe consider sending out information and packets to every single legislator if we choose like
Yes.
the ones that we know won't go away.
Exactly. Exactly.
Save
And
Europe, maybe.
one of the things I found out about switching back to like the governor's office, one of the, I think it's the director for legislation, I started looking at her profile, and she has like a huge interest in education. Like she passed some sort of, she had some involvement in like a law that passed that was like $98 million for like votes or something in Tennessee or maybe a different state. I don't really know. But she has a huge interest in education, so little things like this really help to like figure out like who exactly we're going to target. So as we coordinate with policy and business, we'll be able to better define like who we're going to go after.
Okay, so the two places that we were, the two opposites are revenue and donations. And so we kind of analyzed the cons and pros of both. And for making us be just a business focus, it's really hard to run a business. Like very few people can do it and do it very successfully.
No, basically, it's very hard to create a startup, and when you add in the fact that we're trying to do this from the mutual benefit of established businesses and education, that's just adding to the complexity of it. And then there's other problems, like how do you put a price tag on what needs to be provided for education? How do you put a price tag on education? And then also, how would we create a source of revenue out of nothing for, if we were strictly coming at it from the revenue perspective?
But if we're like a business, we would have continuous money and we wouldn't have to worry about like going back to people and asking for more money and all that stuff. It would be something that you bought into and all that kind of stuff. So it would be continuous money.
Right.
Donations, the issue was that it's not sustainable and we're going to continually be having to work to get that money. We're going to, like that's where all our manpower is going to go kind of. And then we have the no sick kids effect. This is education. It's going to be very hard to prove that we're actually making a big difference, whereas like if you put a little.
If you're giving to the Autism Foundation, you can see kids, or if you're giving to St. Jude, you can look up and you can find a picture of a kid that your money is going to. If you're donating to education, it's very ambiguous and very controversial because you don't know exactly where that money is going to. You don't know, you can't put a face with it, basically. It's just the no sick kids effect where you don't see where your money's going. You don't know exactly who it is directly affecting.
And then for the good part of it is if we decide that we're going to be a nonprofit, we can get 1023 status after we have a year's worth of information. And with that, they can get tax breaks and tax exemptions when businesses buy into this program.
And
Tell
tax,
us what 1023 status is before you go on.
It's where you're we have more about it. in the next-
Cool, sorry. I apologize.
and the tax breaks doesn't just apply to the donation standpoint. I mean, that's something that can be offered once we have established our own methods. So we came up with a hybrid plan.
And it's a revenue-based nonprofit. So what we're gonna try and do is we're gonna kind of be like a business where we're generating constant revenue, but it can also, it's
seen as a nonprofit. And so the 1023 is as long as you're under $70,000, making under $70,000 of profit a year, you're considered a nonprofit. And so if we ever increase over 70,000, we can take any of that money and redonate it and like redistribute it all throughout the school systems. So we're never like going over that limit, and we're always going
It
to
basically
be.
becomes a huge donation once you get over 70,000.
Yeah. And then we're thinking this way it's gonna be sustainable, and it makes it so we are less partial in the situation. Like, it's not gonna be like businesses competing with another business, it's gonna be a
It-
business,
It creates more of a mutual benefit.
yeah.
When you say we, could you elaborate on who you're referring to?
Like this plan.
But like the state of Tennessee, like in enforcing it or implementing it?
It would be our plan that we're implementing into legislation, hopefully. And then once legislation takes over it, but the idea is to basically just create a sustainable system of revenue where businesses are buying into this program. Well, actually, we'll get to that in a little bit. But it creates a system of competition. It creates basically a micro competition amongst the companies. And like we said, it makes it seem less partial an issue. It creates a revenue stream, but it doesn't make us seem like we are completely biased. And makes it
It's
seem
more,
less ambiguous.
they're seeing us as all this money is going towards the issue, and it's not like we're a business trying to make money.
They don't see it as these businesses that are already making. They don't see it as them giving money to businesses that are already making money.
That are gonna be taking profits away from them.
Right. I guess that should be.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, everybody. So that's that slide right there. Right now. And so obviously, how does business work? You have to sell goods and services, and you.
Or there's a
you evolve.
financial sector, which is like loans, bonds, those kinds of things. So the things that we would be selling is advertisement, brand loyalty, and sales. When you're in the school, like, it's at that location. You know, there's products right there for the students to buy and consume. So, I mean, that's the good stuff that we'll be selling to the companies.
Yeah, so yeah, basically their logos in the school, you're getting brand loyalty because you're having this product that you're still using. And if they use that product over and over again, and if the teachers are promoting it, the faculty's promoting it over and over again, you know, every day of the school year, then you're gonna get brand loyalty, kind of like Apple did with their putting the computers in.
So we have teachers promoting a product?
It's an idea. We have something we're gonna get to where we'll talk about kind of gray areas that need to be discussed.
Going off of what we were just talking about school boards and their structure, I'm not sure if, because it seems like it'd be more viable if like the school board is like entering into like the contract with this business, right? But I'm not sure if they have the authority to do that.
Right.
Also, how do you approach people that like already have existing contracts with schools? Like, I know like Coca-Cola or Pepsi,
They would stay, and we're kind of, there's still one part we're gonna get to that kind of will address that.
It could possibly create competition, like,
well, there's already
Right.
competition existing, so like how would it
This
like,
is
feed into that?
basically, so it's safe to go on.
Is it,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
sorry, if it's going, if you're gonna cover it.
Yeah.
then it's fine.
So basically our big idea, our kind of like, our big pitch is this idea of having a flex card. And this is basically a card that is either empty or preloaded from the businesses that, and these businesses will buy into this flex card program, and the card will be valid for, you know, just an arbitrary number, like 15, 20 businesses, local and corporate, that the students can use to buy products either in the store, in like a little market, kind of like the market that's in Hodges in the library, on the second floor, or the students can take the flex cards to the actual store and receive a discount on all or selected products.
If you guys ever been to like, I mean, if you have like a corporate card or even like a Pilot Rewards card, it's gonna be kind of like that. It's a good way research and see when people are purchasing, how people are purchasing, and have all those questions answered, so that way they can formulate a budget that's structured towards the consumer, like they know the consumer if you have a loyalty card, because they can see everything you're buying and when you're doing it. And so that's why the big corporations will want to buy in, because if these students have these cards, they can see, you know, how they're purchasing, and even if they're not purchasing from their stores, but they can like
Right.
see where it's
So
coming,
it
like where the
provides-
money's going.
So it provides market research to these big companies, and in future there's the potential for future loyalty there. It promotes future brand loyalty for the company's products.
And we're trying to decide if we're going to have these cards like preloaded or empty, because if they have it preloaded for small businesses and stuff, it actually brings them to their store, like they have to go to the store to purchase the good with, you know, the flex card that they have. Or if we're just gonna have them empty and people can put the money on it, and then when they do, they receive a discount when they go into the store and use their flex card.
The
Yeah.
problem with having it preloaded, obviously, is the fact that when a student reaches that limit, they can't spend any more, which, you know, puts a restriction on how much revenue that company's making.
Yeah.
In low income schools, if they don't come preloaded, do you think that there'll be a lot of kids who will put money on them? I mean, if they don't have, if they're on like free and reduced lunch, then they clearly don't have, I mean, if they can't afford to have a school lunch is only $3 or something, you know, they're gonna really be shopping in stores in their school.
Well, it's out of the school as well. It's like, if, what were some of the things you were using before, like, I mean, you said like, the big corporations are like AutoZone, FedEx, all these.
And then like in having like promotional nights, kind of like CC's nights or something like that.
They go in and get like a discount for using that loyalty card. They're just,
But would that work as well with things, like you said, AutoZone, I mean, kids probably don't do a lot of shopping at AutoZone.
well, no, but their parents are using, like, can use these cards too. So instead of the parent going into a store with their debit card or a credit card, they're going and putting money on this card and then using it, and because they're using this card, they're receiving a discount. So they're more prone to go to the stores that are offering the discount rather than going and spending their money at a different store. You know what I mean? Like,
It's almost like a consolidated coupon book, if you want to think about it that way.
Like a smart card, like those things that they used to sell to raise money for schools that would have all these businesses in the area would put you to get discounts. It's a big card and it has like little bitty segments of each little restaurant where you could get discount on. It's kind of like that. There had a barcode on it and it would work at like every place around the area.
I don't know if I've actually seen one of those, but it sounds sort of kind of what we're trying to say. But basically, you know, if you just want to think of it as a consolidated coupon book that's in a single card that you can use at multiple locations. So basically what this does is it brings, the companies have bought into it, so they're providing revenue for the school. And then the students are getting to use this card to receive discounts, to go to these, this is what the companies are getting out of it, is they're getting loyal customers that are going to go to their store, they're going to buy their products, they're going to become loyal customers hopefully, and customers receive discounts. We have one next page.
and then requirements of the schools who have these plans in them is to give out the cards, put up the advertisements, and so.
Basically, this is the stuff that we haven't, that is kind of a gray area and that needs to be discussed further, basically. So how are we going to charge? I mean, are we going to do empty or preloaded cards? I mean, preloaded would basically be like a Visa gift card.
And how do we charge like each business? Is it gonna vary amongst the type of business who's investing, or how are we gonna put a price tag on this?
And then the market research, you know, our company is going to be able to get a beneficial amount of market research out of these cards. I mean, it would have to be a pretty widespread program, especially for companies that aren't prominent in schools. I mean, such as, you know, like AutoZone, International Paper. Companies don't have tangible, how should I say, I guess, that are basically like service companies. And then,
The loyalty cards, like the flex cards, how are they gonna work in all the schools? Like, will it be possible to get all the technology on them and all that?
yeah.
And then there was an area that Mark brought up that we haven't even really looked at yet, and just like making it into a secondary market and focusing on like financial sector.
What does everybody think? Christian, what do you think of this?
Would you guys like, if you were guys in middle school or high school, would you like the flex card idea?
I think the cards are like, I mean, the appeal of a card is not that great because, I mean, like, look at how many cards people have. There's cards for everything nowadays.
Right.
But I think if it was targeted towards kids and like, you know, I don't know, there could be an additional thing on, I'm not exactly sure on like how the cards would work, but if they could use them, like, there was something like whenever we were younger, maybe in the 90s, where we had these cards and you would go to the store and you could get a free Coke. Because it was like some, do you remember that? That I was trying to find it on the internet, but I couldn't think of it.
No. Oh, I'm thinking of Gold Gallon, just kidding.
Oh.
They have those for the milk jugs.
Same concept though. So like, I remember like having cards for things like that, and like, it was good because like, I was like, wow, I get free stuff, or I can like, it gave me power. Like having a card as a kid is power. To adults,
Right,
it's not that
and
much.
another thing we were hoping is that it will kind of kickstart kids
And,
thinking
like,
about responsibility, thinking about maintaining. It's just an added responsibility, and it starts teaching kids that from a young age.
But at the same time, like, I wonder how parents would feel about that.
Well, the thing
like
is
allowing their children to
is-
have the ability to purchase things without their consent.
Well-
Because, I mean, like, I don't know, you have parents that are worried about, like, their health, and, you know, some parents don't want their kids, like, drinking soda, so
I don't know if the,
you're gonna have to go out.
our whole thing is also not just focusing on the kids, because when we go to businesses and try and get them to buy in, if we're being like, hey, we're trying to market to kids, they're gonna be like, we don't care, because
Yeah.
most markets are from the ages of, you know, like 16 to 35 is like target markets for all purchasing, you know? And so the whole thing with the flex card was that these parents are gonna know that it can allow them to get discounts, and they can, you know, like, they can use it. It's not just for the kids. Yes, if the parents decide to delegate that responsibility to their children, then awesome, like the kid can spend the preloaded cash on whatever they see fit. But the whole like purpose of it is that they'll have a flex card, or they'll have this card that gets them discounts in all the stores that have bought in. You know, so it's like,
I like that it gives you like discount. Do you have to like earn so many points before you get discount though? Kind of like how like Kroger is. Okay, because I was going to say if you like if you have to accrue points or anything, that's too.
No.
what we were thinking is that there's a certain discount that you initially have to buy into, and you have to provide this certain discount. And then it was another thing on our pin board, it was like with in the loyalty cards category, it was kind of just like, do we increase it the more they spend at your store? Like if they're spending so much, do you give them a higher discount, all that kind of stuff, and we
It
don't
seems
know
like
if
But
it's
it-
gonna be
but-
like,
a lot of trouble.
Yeah, exactly. But as far as the user goes, then it would just be a standard discount.
all these stores would have to provide.
And I mean, at the same time, and you know, these kids until high school, these kids can only go so far, you know, because they can't drive, so you're not going to be going out, you know, to go out buying cigarettes and stuff.
Any other, yeah.
I like it. Here are a few thoughts of mine. I think if you incorporated, not only to keep up with the times, as they say, but to, if you incorporated some like social media into it, you know, like Foursquare, if you check into places, and now Foursquare has if you check in, you can get a free appetizer, or you can get like discounts on drinks. I think if you added social media into this, it can be tracked. You can pull advertisers into it because they can see where the kids are spending their money. But also, if the kids are seeing what the other kids are doing, then they're going to want to do that as well. And it's just kind of they're all going back and forth, and before you know it, your product is blooming.
I I think the only issue with that is gonna be if we provide all this, if we show where all the kids are spending their money, the market research that the big corporations are buying into is now gonna be fully exposed for everyone, and then there's gonna be no incentives to buy into our program, because if they can just like be like, oh, my friends are shopping here, here, and here, any big corporation can be like, why am I paying for this? And I can just look on social media and hack into this and see where all these kids are purchasing, or where all their parents are.
And then for the parents thing that Caitlin brought up earlier, remember those Disney phones that they used to have, where you would like, your parents would get into Disney or something? It was a cell phone. It's kind of like, I think it was called Cricket or
Only like
something.
accept calls or something, or only
It was,
make calls to
it was
certain
similar to
numbers.
that, but that was like the first GPS for your phone, and
Yeah.
the parents could see where the kids were.
Yeah,
Similar to that, we could, I mean, I can see you guys kind of doing to where the parents can track where the kids are buying their
spending
stuff.
their money.
So that kind of feigns some of the parents' disapproval of the kids having
So
card
you
buying.
to entice parents to do more.
Yeah.
So it could be more of just like, you can check where you're spending your money and only you have access to that. Maybe like on the barcode or whatever, you can see like all sales purchased on that. I think that's how it's gonna have to be for any card, because if we're doing something like a Visa card where you can preload money onto it, if you wanna pull up your previous bank statements, you know, you can do that on debit cards and credit cards, so if we
And that's the idea of the card only being able to be used for the companies that have fallen, to the companies that are in the program.
I like it.
He brings up a really good point though, in that, like, yeah, like if you were to incorporate any sort of social media, so it'd be incredibly difficult because there's like tons and tons of companies and programs now where they do like social media analysts, where you just run a thing and like you type in one word and they come up with like word clouds and like if you're talking about what brand. So that would be a really tricky thing. Like what was my point? Sorry.
The need for it, stuff that we're talking about.
No, I just completely lost it.
Anyone else have questions, comments, concerns? More areas we need to look over?
We know which ones those are. You
What's
told
the
us.
name?
I know, I said more areas we need to look over.
What's the name? What's the name of the card?
That's what looks over here from the advertisers. They just go,
Yeah, you're the marketing team, so that's your
I think
job.
it's
Sorry,
the-
go ahead.
Like, ex-school flex card.
Oh,
Crossword flex card,
oh,
Chevy
okay.
flex card,
Like whatever school it
or
is.
a little flex card.
Yeah, I think you'd have to format it based on the school that the plan is
What
going
if it
to.
was like school, but
Maybe.
then you crossed out the right letters, so you said cool?
Here you go, see?
Perfect.
All right, we'll figure this out.
Yeah.
Advertising.
But,
Yeah.
There's
But I mean, there's the potential to trademark, you know, like the flex card and then.
So it's Tennessee one? Is that what you're trying to say? Like,
I think what Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but Ryan's trying to say that it's, if you trademarked it or if you used it correctly, it would be a good opportunity for Tennessee to stand out amongst the crowd and have other people to replicate this one idea. Even as far as you could say copyright the idea, and Tennessee could then lease it to other states.
Exactly.
I knew where you were going.
so do you want me to put that on the pin board, seeing as I just asked you if there's other areas?
so I was tasked with looking up stats and demographics. And coming off of my relevance in the council, and what we were talking about last week with, I believe, how our education is low and how that affects our degrees and the legitimacy of us. I was thinking about how last year, with the monkey bill, how Tennessee was a huge thing, the whole nation knew about the monkey bill, and the day the monkey bill went into place, for those who don't know the monkey bill, it essentially allows for students to argue, or to, argue with the teacher, or to refute what the teacher teaches them in the classroom on, as they said in the bill, it says controversial topics such as evolution and different other things. Anyways, and so the whole nation was abuzz and like helping Tennessee legislators to go against it and all that sort of stuff. But anyways, it passed, and the day it was passed, Nature magazine, the world's most premier science journal, published published an article about Tennessee and how it's kind of like falling back in time. And so that affects me as a science major from Tennessee. And so I was thinking about education, and as you guys are aware, math and science scores in the U.S. are not very high, especially in Tennessee. They have this one thing called Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study, TIMSS. It's a like analysis tool that is given every 4 years to 4th graders and 8th graders. And about like 60 countries participate in this. And then they have, actually, I just got to pull something in the article, so let's scratch the 60 countries. There is this thing called Organization for Economic Development and Cooperation. These countries use this tool to analyze their students. And of the 29 participating countries, U.S. ranks 24th out of 29 in math and science skills. Strangely enough, Massachusetts alone ranks much higher than the United States. But, so I was looking at all of these, and anyways, it says 75%, well, and breaking down the demographics between the different stuff, especially in Tennessee, we work a lot with that. It says 70% of white students rated intermediate status. Only 35% of blacks and 45% of Hispanics ranked intermediate status. And then wealthier school districts scored about 86%, while the poor districts scored about 30%, ranking intermediate level. And we lag behind countries such as Singapore, Taiwan, China, Korea, and the Netherlands. And we only really beat like Italy. Anyways, scrolling through this, we have the Patrick Ganales, who is with the Department of Education in the U.S. And he said that when you break students into standard sociological groups, parents with college education and minorities, the gap between the top and bottom is greater within the United States than between U.S. and top-performing Dutch students. So what he's saying is, with U.S. students, is very disparate between our rankings. And then he goes on to talk about how there are significant differences between boys and girls in math and science in the 4th grade. But these pale in comparison with the differences between white and black, or poor and wealthy. Although I will say the boys and girls thing is not relevant due to different cognitive skills and stuff. Anyways, and they start talking about quality versus quantity. And what a lot of push for math and science in the U.S. is more for quality. We want students who grasp it more rather than just pumping out a bunch of different science and math curriculums throughout the United States. And then why we need to work on this other than beating other countries would be for economic reasons. There's one professor from Stanford who did a study that said, we did study how it affects the American economy, and he said, I think it was 2/3 of a percent of an effect per year on the economy. So really that's a lot of an effect. And I'm kind of just bringing this forward to you guys as we are working on education, how just working on science and math alone will help bring Tennessee up, and then we can kind of build a more conclusive program from that. But if we focus on math and science, it'll benefit us a lot. And I'm going to leave on this quote from Julie Dunkel, the U.S. Education Project Manager from Intel, who during this last decade, and from here on, Intel has been funding money to create interest in math and science. I think in this last decade they gave $120 million to create interest. But she says, fluency in math is needed to understand science, and science creates the innovations that will help solve the challenges we face, like climate change. It's critical to our country's ability to create a deeper talent pool that the country needs to compete and thrive globally. So long story short, math and science. Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns? Yes.
I know like the whole STEM coalition is really big, which focuses on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So are you suggesting more of us just keeping this in mind that science and math are going to be really important
address this. One would be, earlier in the semester, we saw some stuff about venture capitalists and how they are using venture capitalists to enter the education spectrum of things. And so we could easily go to different, like Intel, for instance. We could easily get them to do those things. So venture capitalists is one way we can do this. Another way is to create more focus on school issues. Not that every issue is not unimportant, but to kind of gear things more towards math and science, if we raise those, because those are more easily raisable than other things, or we can work on those more easily than other things in education. And if we just raise those, that'll pick us up, and then we can focus more on like what the issues are at hand. And then the third thing on introducing this would be that how we teach math and science in schools and what has not been working, and how with this new Tennessee education thing coming out in the last few years, that we talked about I think 2 weeks ago, they're starting to introduce science at a younger age. Kindergarten, I believe, is when they start doing them, but their science thing is geared toward little children, so they work, but they get some thinking more.
And the curriculum's developed for
Yes.
all the way down there.
So venture capitalists, easy thing to work